Well, welcome to another Premier League videocast here at easyodds.com, where of course the season is hotting up. We're going to come very shortly to the busy Christmas period. Just before we came on air, I asked Simon what price for Man City for the Premier League, and he said, they're around about 4-1. I think that's cracking value, I really do. Everybody's going OTT about Chelsea. They'll hit a sort of a flat spot sooner or later. It will happen to them, for sure.
I'm hoping it might happen this weekend, Paul.
There's a clue. Tremendous stuff. Tom, what do you think? I mean, overall, Chelsea are, 2-7, 1-4 at the moment. We're not even halfway through the season. And if Costa, for example, does get an injury, I mean, we don't know whether that's going to happen or not. There isn't much backup, to be honest with you.
Well, there must be, because I think Costa hasn't scored he's only scored like 2 in his last 6 or something like that. The goals have dried up for him a bit, and they do seem to still be scoring quite a few goals. So it's hard to see Chelsea not winning the league, unfortunately.
And what happens when Aguero stops scoring, if he ever stops scoring?
Well, Xhaka will come back, right?
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
My powers of persuasion, quite obviously, are not working. So let's start off with the matches this weekend. Let's go first of all to Newcastle versus Chelsea. It's 9th versus 1st. Chelsea, of course, the only unbeaten team in the Premier League, which means they're the only unbeaten team away from home.
Indeed, yeah. And two bits of proverbial trumpet blowing to do before I get on to the Newcastle-Chelsea bet.
Fair enough.
In this fixture last season, I napped Newcastle to win the game at 26-5, which is
Nice.
just over 5-1, which was a nice return. Biggest Premier League nap win of the season. And last weekend I had Sunderland or draw double chance against Chelsea at 23-10.
You don't like Chelsea, do you?
Well, they're just overrated, Paul, as you were alluding to.
Or the bookmakers overrate them.
Absolutely, yeah. They overestimate their chances of winning. It always happens when a team goes unbeaten early at the start of the season.
Okay.
Eventually they'll lose, and I'm hoping it's this weekend, because I think Newcastle are a cracking bit of value at 7-1. I think 7-1 is a fantastic price on a Newcastle win. If you think about it, Paul, in literal terms, 7-1 implies like 12 or 13% chance of winning a match. 12 or 13%. Newcastle are very good at home. Their home win ratio is solid since the start of last season. 44% of their home matches they've won. They're obviously in good form. 5 wins in the last 7 Premier League games. They've got a good record in this fixture. They've got players back from suspension, Colback and Sissoko, who missed the midweek draw with Burnley. Yeah. Chelsea, I know they're unbeaten, but they have lost quite a lot of away games since Mourinho came back for his second spell. Last season they lost 5 of their away games. So even now, they're unbeaten at this stage this season. Mourinho still lost around 1 in 5 of all his away league games, implying that average opposition sides I would suggest should be about 4-1 to beat Chelsea. And I suggest Newcastle are slightly above average right now as well. Also Chelsea not playing outstandingly well away from home. Obviously they drew 0-0 at Sunderland in their last away game. They've lost their last 2 at St James's Park actually. They lost 3-2 the season before last as well.
Good start. Also,
team news, obviously Diego Costa's back, but Nemanja Matic is now suspended. You think this is now the sort of game where Matic would be very important. He could be a very big loss in the central midfield, because Cesc Fabregas tends to go walkabouts quite a lot, so there might be a little bit exposed there. I think this is a great time to take on Chelsea, and Newcastle to win 7-1, a straight win bet.
7-1, which basically negates my next question to both guys, whether Chelsea can go unbeaten through the season. So I'll ask Tom, is it a yay or a nay?
Nay, in terms of just all matches, but I think you still get odds on them going unbeaten at home. I think it's hard to see anyone going to Stamford Bridge and winning. I think it's only really Man City that can go there and win. Now Arsenal haven't won there.
They've got a poor record at Villa Park, haven't they?
I have got a poor record at Villa Park, yeah, so obviously that's probably where the loss will come in eventually, but I think they could go unbeaten at home, definitely.
Okay, now there you go, buttering up your colleague. That's what
it's 7-1 by the way, Paul. Chelsea's unbeaten, 7-1.
7-1. What were they at the beginning of the season? About 33s? Probably bigger than that, weren't they, as well? Tom, can you see a turnover here?
Yeah, I can. I mean, as always, I'm usually a little bit more conservative than Simon with my bets in these ones. But Chelsea are definitely too short. I think 8-15 best price. One book maybe got them 4-9, which is absolutely crazy price for this one.
That is short, isn't it? Wow.
That is very short. I prefer to probably go Newcastle or draw double chance, because obviously Chelsea are still a very good team and unbeaten. So whether Newcastle can win the match, I'm not entirely sure. But Chelsea do slip up now and again. As Simon said, they only drew at Sunderland last weekend. They've drawn at Maribor, who aren't a very good team. Yeah. Drawn at both Manchester clubs. I know Manchester clubs have got they're good teams and better than Newcastle, but still they've failed to win those matches. And Simon alluded to as well, they're missing a few players here because Matic is suspended, and also Cahill's a doubt.
Yeah.
He went off at half time with a head injury.
Oh, yeah.
In midweek, and as I said before as well, Costa, the goal scoring slowed up for him a little bit now, just 2 in his last 6, and he's so he could not have as good an impact as he usually does. And also Newcastle are a good team. Newcastle are a decent side. They've won 6 of the last 8 matches, 1 defeat in the last 9. They haven't lost at home, so they lost to City on the opening day of the season. I think they won something like 3 in a row at home as well. So their fortunes have turned around since a pretty poor August and September, so they're looking pretty good. Chelsea should win the match, but as Simon said, the bookmakers have overestimated them and underestimated Newcastle here. So Newcastle draw double chance at 9-5. I'll play a little bit more conservative than Simon and get the draw inside as well.
How interesting is that? And Simon does it quite a lot if you watch our videocasts here on easyodds.com, and particularly on the Premier League videocast, that betting is not all about your opinion on which side is better than the other, the tactical setup and which players are or aren't available. Betting is also starkly about percentages of winning and whether prices are too high or too low from our bookmaker partners and mathematics. That's why bookmakers win when you talk about horse racing on the rails.
Yeah.
Bookmakers normally have a rounded book because they feel mathematically they can't lose. That's why they change their prices.
Yeah, Chelsea are obviously more likely to win the match than Newcastle,
Yeah.
but that's not important in betting.
Interesting. Let's go to Man City. They take on Everton, 2nd versus 11th here, Tom. Surprisingly, I looked at the stats here, Man City only scored 11 at home in 6 games. They've got 20 on the road.
Yeah, well, that surprises me as well, actually. I didn't realise that. But they're doing a lot better at the moment. Obviously, you expect them to do well in most games. But they won 4 in a row now. They started to score quite a lot of goals. I think they scored 12 in their last 4. So you can't really argue with them being 4-7 to win this match. But yeah, I backed them in midweek in the half-time, full-time market. I mean, most of the time this season they tend to have got most of their goals in the second half. I remember even when they played Sheffield Wednesday, there was 0-0 at half-time, then they won 7-0 in the second half. Yeah. So they do tend to do quite a lot of their scoring in the second half. But I just think 11-8 on Man City half-time, full-time here is pretty good price, really. It's mostly because I'm surprised there haven't been a few more disgruntled Everton fans this season, because they're actually not doing pretty well when you look at it. Won 4 matches so far this season, only drew with Hull in midweek. They're actually only 2 points ahead of Aston Villa, actually, and I thought, all the displeasure from the Villa fans about Paul Lambert, and they're only 2 points behind Everton, who spent probably about 3 times as much as Villa did because they bought Lukaku. So I'd simply just be backing Man City to win this game. I can't see anything other than a City win, despite Everton having a not too bad a record at the Etihad in recent years. But they did lose twice to Man City beat Everton twice last season. This bet would have come in on both occasions. I think it was 3-1 at the Etihad. So I'll just be looking at half-time, full-time Man City here at 11-8.
Another odds against tip there at 1-1, 11-8. I've got a theory about the Everton management and the hierarchy, right? And this is the theory. I think they'll sacrifice a mid-table position this season, put everything into the Europa Cup, because not does it only mean they're going to win a cup, a trophy, it means they'll get into the Champions League. And I think that's their strategy this season, I really do. And I think all Everton fans, I think it's common sense, would accept that.
It's not a bad strategy, Paul, really. I mean, Everton have been a regular top 6 team. They're not going to make the top 4, really, are they, realistically?
No, not a chance.
It wouldn't be a bad strategy, but they better make sure they do well in Europe, because as Tom says, they're not doing well in the league at the moment. They're still knocking around mid-table. You'd expect City to win this match more often than not. The bookmakers obviously agree. City are 4-7 shots. I think that's about right. Everton 6-1 chances. Obviously City are back in form. They've won 3 straight games at the Etihad. Aguero looks like he could single-handedly steamroller most Premier League teams at the moment. Their long-term home record is obviously excellent. 21 wins from 25 home league games under Manuel Pellegrini. Everton's away record's okay under Roberto Martinez. They've only lost 7 of 26, 10 wins, 9 draws. So I think 6-1's a fair reflection of their chances of winning. They're not absolute no-hopers, but I think 6-1's about right. There should be goals, but the bookmakers have that well covered, as they always do with City home games. So it's going to be a sit on the fence, no-bet game for me, Paul. I'd just follow Tom's selection.
Let's hope that Naismith returns for Everton, because they missed him big time on Wednesday night. I think we say this in every
video.
Between the lines, you know where I'm coming from. Let's go to West Ham versus Swansea, Tom. 5th versus 7th. the pretenders to Europe here. And both these teams have a real chance of hitting the Europa Cup. Swansea 5 points from 18 on their travels. Doesn't bode well, does it?
It doesn't bode well, but if you actually look at the teams that Swansea have had to play away from home so far, you can understand why they haven't picked up many points. They beat Man United, didn't they, on the opening day. Since then, they've been to Chelsea, they've been to Man City, they've been to Everton, where they got a point. And as I said, they went to United as well. So they've actually played some tough teams away from home. So you can understand why they haven't picked up many points. But it is a tough match to call. I think a lot of people will probably be looking at West Ham because they're doing so well at the moment. But they've slipped up plenty of times at home as well. It wasn't too long ago that they drew 0-0 at home in Villa. They lost to Southampton at home. Only beat Newcastle 1-0. So I'd probably leave the match betting alone. I quite like the look of under 2.5 goals. I wrote a preview for the site and it was actually 20 to 23 earlier in the week. It's now down to 41 to 50, so it's shortened a little bit. You can still get 1.87 on the exchanges, but it looks a pretty safe bet. West Ham's last 2 home matches have been 0-0 and 1-0 against moderate opposition as well in Villa and Newcastle. Swansea's last 2 have gone under 2.5 goals as well, and crucially for West Ham as well, missing Diafra Sakho seems to have affected them quite a bit because before he was injured, they'd scored 9 goals in 4 matches, but now 4 in 4 since Andy Carroll's come back in the team. And I don't know, I don't want to have a go at him, but maybe that's something to do with the fact that they're going under so much. Swansea as well, unsurprisingly, considering the opposition they play, they haven't scored many goals away from home. In fact, since John Joe Shelby scored a consolation goal at Stamford Bridge in mid-September, a Wilfred Boney penalty and the opener at Man City a couple of weeks ago, the only goals they've managed away from home in the league. So it could be a bit of a dull encounter, as you probably imagine it would be West Ham v Swansea on a Sunday afternoon. But so I'm just looking at if you think that's dull, you should see the next game we've got a preview. Under's at 1.87. It's a safe bet. It's odds on, but it's a safe bet, I think.
Tom calls it a safe bet. Under 2.5 goals. You know when you watch one of those action movies and 2 big trucks are coming towards each other and they collide and bam, it all goes up in smoke. That's what we're going to get for this game. Let's hear what Simon's got to say.
Well, I think the first thing to say, Paul, is that the match betting looks about right.
Spot on, isn't
West
it?
Ham moderate favourites 7-5, Swansea 23-10, draw 5-2, because they're 2 evenly matched sides. If you look at the bookmakers' odds at the moment, they expect these sides to finish around 9th and 10th respectively. They're basically mid-table, maybe upper mid-table clubs going head-to-head, both in reasonable form. So there's no point trying to have a bet on the match result. But I'm going to go dead against Tom with his goal selection, Paul. And I'm going to be more optimistic and back over 2.5 goals, which I think at even money is a fair price.
Well, hold on. Tom says this is a dead cert under 2.5 goals. This is to quote him, a dead cert. Why is it not
I'm not
a
sure I
dead
said dead cert. I'm not trying to cover
Safe bet. Safe bet were the words, I think. Safe bet.
Yeah, I can say that.
But the reason why I think over 2.5 goals at evens is a good bet, Paul, is because if it's one thing Gary Monk's changed since he took over when Michael Laudrup departed, it's that they're slightly more attacking away from home, and they go overs more away from home.
Right.
The last 12 away league games, going back into last season, they've gone overs in 9 of them,
Wow.
which is 3/4, and 2/3 of their games this season have gone overs away from home, 4 of 6. They tend to score at least a goal. They've scored in 7 of their last 8 games.
Right, good stuff.
Wilfred Boney is in particularly good form. He scored 6 in his last 8 league games. I know he's sort of the only goal threat at the moment, but he's still a pretty good goal threat. And obviously the January window's coming up, so he's probably thinking short window time. I think Swansea should sell him. They can get such a good price for him in January. But anyway, West Ham, obviously the goals have dried up a little bit, as Tom said. I think importantly, Enner Valencia's back. He came off the bench at West Brom in the week, and he's a very good player. He hasn't scored as many as Sakho, but I think he's probably actually better at playing football than Sakho.
He's quick, isn't he?
He's very quick. They're not short of goals in general. Obviously, over the course of the season, they scored 23 and 14. You know, getting on for well, not quite 2 a game, but getting up there, which is very impressive. So I think over 2.5 goals at evens is the way to go. So I will take on Tom there.
Love it when they take each other on. Bit of oomph. That's what we want here on the videocast of the Premier League. And a supplementary question to both of you: if Boney goes in the January window, A, to the nearest £5 million, how much will he go for? And B, which club needs him most that could afford him in the Premier League? Tom?
I reckon he'll go for something close to 25 million.
Right.
And I reckon Spurs or Liverpool. I think they could both do with a striker.
I think 25 million. Liverpool need him more, but Spurs would try and buy him more.
Brilliant stuff. It's like almost everybody would have answered those 2 questions with exactly the same answer.
And you could have said the exact same answer to Christian Benteke, 2 years ago?
Yeah, of course. And what's Benteke worth now?
to Villa or
to any other team. If you're desperate enough, of course, you will pay, as you know, when you do your Christmas shopping later this month.